Hola y bienvenidos al World Wanderers Podcast. Soy Ryan
Soy Amanda.
y vamos a hablar hoy sobre el Festival de San Fermin en Pamplona, España.
Sí.
Y pero no vamos a hablar en español, vamos a hablar en inglés.
¿Por qué no en español?
Porque soy un poco estúpido en español. Today we're talking about the running of the bulls in Pamplona, Spain, it's called the San Fermin Festival. The running of the bulls is just one part of it.
Yeah, so a little bit of information about it. The modern event started in 1591 in the 17th and 18th centuries, and there are written records documenting concerns over foreigners and excessive drunkenness for the event, which we thought was kind of funny when we researched it.
The 17th and 18th century, they were already annoyed by the amount of foreigners and the amount of drunkenness.
Yeah, and the bull ring was built in 1844, and it's the fourth largest in the world.
Yeah, it's a pretty big stadium.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really have much to compare on, but it was pretty big.
Yeah, so the running of the bulls was the first thing we planned when we were planning our trip.
Before flights to Europe.
Yeah, we booked a hostel in Pamplona probably 4 months before we left.
Yeah, it was still winter in Calgary. And
so it's the first thing we booked. And if you want to go to the running of the bulls, you have to book in advance.
Yeah, I mean, we booked, 4 months out, and we didn't even get a top hostel. And everything's expensive, too, to stay. So we ended up booking like an apartment style type place a little bit out of the city center.
But we didn't know it was apartment style when we booked it, though.
No, that's true. We didn't.
So what we had planned in advance was the hostel. And then when we got to the UK, we were trying to plan getting to Pamplona, which we didn't realize would be as difficult as it turned out to be.
We booked a train from Barcelona to Pamplona.
Originally, we were thinking we'd fly, and then we found out flights were super expensive. So we ended up finding the cheaper option was to fly to Barcelona from Cork and then catch a train from Barcelona to Pamplona. Unfortunately for us, or maybe stupidly by us, we didn't book a return train in advance.
So after flying to Barcelona, we spent one night in Barcelona, and then we took the first train out, I think the next morning we missed the very first morning of the festival, like the kickoff for it. And then we got there like early morning, and we show up at the train station. And so we're like, we need to book a train out.
And the train station is just madness.
It's like people wearing the traditional outfits of like white pants, and you wear like white, and then you have like a red belt and a red scarf, which we'll talk a little bit about later, but they're just covered in sangria. So they're basically purple. And
what happens is, since it's so hard to stay in Pamplona, a lot of people stay outside and then train in every day. But the festival, as we found out, if you're a young person, the festival happens kind of between 7 p.m. and 10 a.m. So you train in the evening and you leave in the morning. So as we were arriving, there was just heaps of haggard, drunk people all wearing white, but it's like almost all purple because of the sangria all over everyone. And then also a ton of people arriving. So the train station was just madness because Pamplona, although it's a decent sized city, it's not in any way equipped to handle that many people.
No.
The train station is fairly small for how many people were there.
I feel like it's like the size of our apartment, like 800 square feet.
So we hop in line. We're like, we'll just reserve a train back to Barcelona. That will be easy.
We like go up. At the time, our Spanish was not so great. And we're like, train Barcelona domingo, por favor. No.
Yeah, so the guy just says, we asked to reserve a train to Barcelona on Sunday, and he just says no.
Saying that we asked to reserve a train is a little bit...
Yeah, I think we said, in my journal we said reservar a Barcelona domingo, which is to reserve to Barcelona Sunday.
You know what? Actually, the first thing we asked was, ¿hablas inglés? No. And I later learned that that's the informal way to say that. So we probably offended the guy right off the bat.
Yeah, but he wasn't very... So there was
wasn't
no
very
direct trains to Barcelona, but obviously there was trains to other places. So he said no, he wouldn't help us, so we left. And we're like, okay, we'll just figure it out later. Like, we'll ask at the hostel about buses. And then thankfully we walked outside and we're like, no, we should get this figured out now. So we go back in line. There were only 2 windows open, so it's another 15-minute wait. And thankfully we end up with the other window. He is a little bit more helpful, although he doesn't speak much more English. And we get like a triple connection train back to Barcelona on Sunday. But that was kind of our first introduction into non-English speaking countries, because we were fairly naive in thinking that people would be speaking English there.
It's also like, I remember you in the UK had kind of been like, oh, maybe we should buy like a phrase book for Spain.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we should brush up on our Spanish from high school. And because I'd been to Italy and Germany and France, where they do speak some English, like you can get by without speaking the languages.
I think Italy might be more comparable to Spain in some areas. But I guess if you had been to Rome,
I think
right?
it's the way that like I'd been with my family, right? Like we had a personal tour guide in Rome and everything was booked ahead. So it's like I didn't really realize that when you're going, it's like we didn't have to do anything, like go up to train stalls and ask for train tickets. Like my parents had arranged everything. So it's like, oh, it's fine. We never had problems in restaurants or anything. So I was like, we don't need a phrase book. We don't need to brush up on our Spanish. Like I know enough. No, I knew no Spanish. Like I knew like pollo. It's chicken.
Yeah, I knew a bit of numbers, and I had learned
Domingo.
I had learned how much cuánto cuesta in the phrase book. But yeah, we were kind of panicking, and then we tried to get in a taxi.
Like freaking out, especially too because we had plans to meet up with a friend from Canada in Barcelona. So we're like, well, crap, we really do have to get back to Barcelona. Like we only have like 2 or 3 days with her. We've got a hostel booked,
and beyond that, we had booked the accommodation probably 6 months before. Like we weren't going to be able to find accommodation if we wanted to stay an extra day, and we didn't want to leave a day early. So
yeah, it was chaos. I think that was a big learning experience for us, like a big event like that. Like you need to book in and out of a city if you do need to leave on a certain day, or if you don't have extra accommodation
especially
booked.
An event like that, like if you're going there for next year, book your hostel now, book your train in and out, or flights, because flights were really expensive.
And take a Spanish phrase book. Don't be ignorant like we were.
Yeah. Looking back on that trip now, after traveling South America and learning some Spanish, I feel ridiculous for not really putting any effort in to learn any of the languages that we saw in Europe.
Yeah. I mean, I would just love to go back and just like embrace it so much more and just try to learn as many words as I could. Like, I mean, we were good with learning please and thank you all throughout the places that we went and in Asia and whatnot. But I think we could have done substantially more learning.
Yeah.
Like substantially more.
Yes, there was probably infinite room for more learning. So we make it to our, what we think is a hostel, and it turns out to be just an apartment, which makes us really glad that we found the train home, because we wouldn't have had anyone to ask.
Yeah, I mean, it was not the typical hostel atmosphere at all. And it was a little bit out of the city center, so we had about a 20-minute walk to get into where all the events were taking place, which wasn't a huge deal because we definitely were able to sleep then. But yeah, so we were already pretty overwhelmed, but we're like, we're here. This is awesome. It's going to be great. So the first thing we did was we headed out to get our costumes.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't like even being called costumes. So I've kind of had this like predisposition to not want to be super touristy. So I was like a little bit hesitant to buy all sorts of the full outfit, but literally everyone there is wearing white pants, white shirt, and some red accented stuff.
So it's a red bandana thing and a red belt is traditional.
Yeah, but then some people have like a red shirt with white pants. But like, yeah, there is an outfit that you look out of place if you're not wearing. I know it's pretty fun to like get in the Running of the Bulls style.
Yeah. So we have one photo of us together.
So
wearing matching outfits.
Yeah.
This is
and
the only
matching
time we've
t-shirts,
ever
too.
done this before. Ever in our entire lives. I don't know if I'll ever do it again. Do you think we will? Wear a matching outfit?
Probably not.
Not really our thing, hey?
But you have a habit of wanting to buy the same t-shirt as.
I wanted that shirt before you looked
That's
at
debatable.
it. Whatever.
Okay, so yeah, we both
There was lots of different
have
shirts,
white
but we bought the
shirts,
same shirt.
White shirts. I don't think I bought everything at first because I was like, no, I'm not going to be super touristy. I'm not going to buy white pants. I'll just wear my shorts. But then eventually I kept it.
Yeah, I think part of it was that after seeing everybody in the train station and after kind of like seeing people at the vendors, we were like, our stuff is probably going to get pretty covered. Like I was like, I'll just wear my white shorts. And then I was like, I kind of need these for the next 5 months. Like I don't really want to ruin my white shorts.
Yeah. So
It's easier to spend a bit of money on it.
Yeah. If anyone doesn't know why we were thinking it was getting ruined, sangria is like the official drink of San Fermin, not in any official context, but like everyone is drinking sangria, and not only are they drinking it, they like to throw it over each other.
Yeah, it's
so you buy these little
tradition.
Leather sacks, and then you put your sangria in it, and you spray it on people, and that's fun.
Yeah, and so everybody buys their sangria from like the supermarket. So you go into the supermarket and you can get 1.5 liters of this brand called Don Simon for €3, which is like 5 Canadian dollars for 1.5 liters of sangria, which you can drink in the streets. You can take into the bars. Everybody just is very liberal there with their alcohol consumption.
Yeah, it's really cool being able to drink. It was expensive for the accommodation is what I want to say, but you don't spend that much money outside of that because you're drinking sangria, and it doesn't really make any sense why the bars let you do this, but everyone's partying in the street. You can take your gigantic cup of sangria into a bar and hang out in the bar. So you're paying like however long 1.5 liters lasts you.
I think like a whole night pretty much.
Well, yeah, but I think we went through one each. In a night.
That's a lot of sangria.
Yeah, but it's fairly not that strong. But yeah, you don't spend more than like €5 on drinks. I think I bought a beer. And then in addition to that, just the other events around the city don't cost that much too.
Yeah, so do you want to talk a little bit about the other sort of what a traditional day looks like if you're doing San Fermin?
The schedule of events, I think it goes kind of around the clock. During the day, there's a bit more family stuff. There's like a procession of like gigantic, it's called like the big head and big people thing. It's where they've got these like giant saint kind of paper mache things that they walk around. We miss that. But for most people our age, the day is actually the night. There's a bullfight at 6:30 where they kill the bulls that were ran the morning.
Yep.
The 6 bulls. Then there are fireworks around 11, and that's kind of like the kickoff of the night. And then people just go nuts until about 5 in the morning when you go find a spot for running of the bulls. And then running of the bulls doesn't happen until about 8. The bulls run, and then everyone returns to go to sleep. And
so you're
the
sleeping
city.
At like 10 a.m., hey?
Yeah, we kind of, in most days we slept. Other than the day we went to the bullfight, we were up a bit earlier, but we kind of slept 10 a.m. to like 6 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And then drank a lot of Red Bull outside of that.
Yeah.
But that was one thing that was shocking to me, that to find out that the running of the bulls for a lot of people is the end of the night. Like a lot of those people doing that thing have been up all night and are drunk.
Yeah, it's pretty absurd to think that people are like running with bulls chasing them. Like it's legitimately a danger. Like it's not safe.
Yeah.
Like nobody is like gonna hold the bulls back. Like the bulls are running and people are, well, obviously they're running, but I mean,
it's not the walking of the bulls.
the walking of the bulls. Maybe there's a lazy one. He's sleepy. No, but it's like, what I'm trying to say is that there's no like safety with it. Like nobody's there to be like, oh, the bull's coming around the corner, like get out of the way. It's like people are taking their lives in their hands to run.
Yeah, it's funny because Spain in general is probably like a much more socialist country than Canada, the USA, but we're so much more, have taken safety out of the hands of individual people. Like that event like that would never be allowed to happen here because people would get sued. Like,
absolutely not.
but there it's like, yeah, runner beware. Like you can do something stupid at your own risk.
And there's no like, oh, have you been drinking? Like you can't run with them. It's like,
but one thing they do is on the first few days, which are more popular for runners, it's the bigger days, they pull a lot of foreigners out. Like they don't let, I think mostly Australians, it seems like, to be the biggest foreign group there.
Yeah.
Australians, Americans, Canadians.
If you look at the stats, probably people from the UK as well. If you look at the stats, like there is probably somebody who dies every year. Like the year we were there, somebody actually died doing a backflip off a statue.
So yeah, but one thing I was surprised to see is only 15 people have died doing the running of the bulls since 1923.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, which isn't that many people. No, yeah, that's in the actual running of the bulls. Like in a crazy drunken shit show that it is, people probably die doing other stupid things.
Yeah,
but I don't think that many people die.
Interesting.
A lot of people get hurt.
I assumed because I heard that there was a foreigner that died, I think, this past year, and then there was a foreigner that died the year we were there.
But yeah, I think you can get hurt during running the bulls, but you have to get fairly, you'd have to get pretty unlucky to actually die during the running of the bulls.
Yeah. So I guess people are probably wondering if we ran. So for me, I had no interest in putting my life in the hands of my legs with a bull behind me. What about you?
Yeah, I kind of had this urge to do it. Like this, I can't go to the running of the bulls without running with the bulls. Like I feel like I couldn't face my friends and say I went and didn't run.
And why did you feel that way?
Well, I feel like there's this urge in like young male people, a lot of them, or me at least, to be like completely unafraid, you know? You don't want to be like, called a pussy.
You don't want to show fear.
Yeah. So it's kind of like misplaced masculinity, I think, where you have to admit that, oh, this thing doesn't make any sense. Like, what am I gaining by doing it? Like, obviously I watch it and I'm like, oh, this would be like quite the rush. It'd be cool to have said I have done that. Mm-hmm. But doing things to say that you've done them, I don't think that's a very good philosophy behind doing things.
No, I don't think so.
Because that relies on like the other people. You know, you're doing things for other people if you're doing things so you can say that you've done them.
Okay, so in recognizing that, if you were to go back, do you think you'd have the urge to run?
Oh, yeah, I'd still have the thing.
Would you, though? Would you run?
I think it would depend on the context of the people I was with.
Yeah, because I think one thing is like, so we committed the first night, or the second night. The first night we were too tired to stay up all night, so we took a nap. The second night we committed to staying up all night. And I know a big thing for me was like, you need to sleep if you're going to run. Like you can't be wasted running. Even
the first night, you say we didn't stay up all night, but we stayed up till 4 a.m.
Yeah.
And then, so 4 a.m. we went back.
We slept for 2 hours.
Yeah, we had bought tickets to the bullfight for the next day we were there. So we were out until 4 a.m. partying. And just to paint a picture of what it looks like, it's an old city, so the streets are narrow. Buildings aren't that tall, but they're tall enough.
And cobblestone.
Yeah, cobblestone. They're kind of like 3-4 story buildings. Cobblestone streets. So it's like this tight environment. Like if you've been to Europe, you kind of know like the old center of a downtown feel.
It's packed with people.
Packed with people wearing white, the same outfit. Everyone's drinking sangria. And it's just madness. Like when you talk about an event taking over a town, like it's popular for people to say, oh, Stampede takes over Calgary. But like Stampede, Calgary is like still a functioning city. I don't think Pamplona is functioning other than that event and like bars, restaurants.
No, I mean, and even restaurants, like when we went out to get food, like there wasn't that much open. Like the city kind of shuts down.
Yeah. And it's just people everywhere. Everyone's drunk. And then the garbage and urine everywhere is pretty shocking too, because people are just there's everyone's drinking everywhere, and there's not really any public toilets. There's just people pissing everywhere.
And I mean, so there is toilets set up, but I know I went to go to one. So it's like you're drinking. So it's like all of a sudden it's like, I have to go to the bathroom now. I remember going to wait, and it was like 30 women deep, the line. And I was like, F this, I'm going in the street. And I remember just like peeing behind a garbage can. It's like I had to go so bad. I know that sounds gross and like very unladylike of me, but it's like I had to go to the bathroom. So at the end of the night, it's just like the streets are just ravaged. They smell terrible. There's garbage everywhere. But at the same time, they do a really good job cleaning it up. So everybody goes to bed and they clean everything up, and it looks like a whole new city by the time you wake up.
Yeah. So we went out partying. There's concerts going on in the main square. There's like people with bands. There's just, partying everywhere, bars in the streets. Went to bed at 4 a.m., reawaken at 6:30 a.m. to walk back to get a place to watch the running of the bulls. And when we had been waiting for bullfighting tickets, someone had told us that there's actually, you can watch it inside the stadium. And we didn't really understand, because we thought, they run the bulls through the streets into the stadium, then the thing's over. But that's not actually the case. What we found was the most enjoyable thing to watch. I don't know, enjoyable sounds weird because it's fairly chaotic and destructive, but was inside the bull ring. You can watch the running on the screen because it's filmed as they run the bulls through the street. The people run into the stadium. If you were there before the bulls, the crowd's chanting like you're a slut in Spanish and just pegging everyone with garbage showering down on anyone who runs into the bulls. Bulls run in, and then the bull ring fills up with probably 1,000 people, enough people that you can't really tell that there's sand on the bottom. It just looks like a sea of white and red.
It's so crazy.
Clothing. And the bull ring's probably got 20,000 spectators in it.
Just everybody's chanting and
singing. It's like a spectacular, crazy thing to see. And then the real craziness begins because they start letting out steers or smaller bulls with capped horns sporadically into this bull ring that is like just packed with people.
And so one thing they do with that is that, so they have these gates and all the people kind of crowd around the gate, and people will hunch down, and then they open it, and the steer jumps the people, and then people will like run at the steer, and like it's kind of crazy because a lot of foreigners will try to like wrestle it. And we saw one guy like get his ass kicked. So we thought the people were going after the bull, and then we realized the bull has gotten away, and the people are like beating the crap out of this person because they're like, don't treat the bull like that.
Yeah, it's a very like cultural thing. So there's a lot of like cultural rules for the Spanish people.
So one of them's like, don't run in before the bull. Don't harm the bull. Yeah.
So you can touch the bull, but you're not supposed to, like, you can like smack it. And that's like the thing you do, or, touch the bull. But there was a guy, he was wearing like a USA bandana, and he tried to grab it by the horns and wrestle it as you like steer wrestle. And then people started kicking him. The whole crowd does this like really loud whistle, high pitched whistle to like disapprove of something. So he was getting beat up. And then every time the bull goes, they get the bull out of the steer out of the stadium, and then everyone will go run to a gate. And at first you're like, what's going on here? And they open the gate, and then the steer comes charging out and jumps over people. But usually there's so many people wanting to get jumped over, which is insane.
Yeah.
That it will land on a few people. And one of the ones we saw actually just didn't even jump, just ran straight through everyone.
Yeah, and then people are like diving out of the way so they're not getting trampled by the steer.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to post videos of this to the show notes on our website, theworldwanderers.com. But if you haven't seen the post running of the bulls madness, like, you should watch these videos, or you go look on YouTube, because it's crazy.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the craziest things I've
That was the thing
ever
I
seen.
enjoyed watching the most. And it's kind of this surreal feeling because you've been out partying all night. You're kind of in this vague, hungover, drunk state. And it's like, what on earth is happening right now? Because it's just the craziest thing you've ever seen in your life. The madness of people just getting gored left, right, and center. There was one man who was completely naked. He was only wearing a sash around his waist, a red one. And he was kind of taunting the bull. And then he ended up getting picked up kind of like with a horn in his butt looking area. At his butt looking area.
In his butt.
In the area that looked like his butt. Picked him up, smashed him on the ground. He's just lying there. And people just, if people get hurt, they just drag them off to the side and maybe like toss them over the edge.
Yeah, it's like get out of the way.
Another
like,
guy
we're having fun.
Another guy seemed to get knocked unconscious, and they did the same thing with him. There's no like spinal support or anything like that.
It's like, oh God, is that guy ever going to walk again? Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy.
It's so crazy.
It's weird because I feel like it doesn't make sense too much, the event. It's like, what's the point of all of this?
I don't know. It's like,
and so every year it comes to town. A bunch of bulls get killed. A bunch of people get hurt.
but I mean,
But at the same time, I look at it. I'm like, oh, I really want to go back.
yeah, no, it's talking about it. I'm like, oh, it was so absurd, like so crazy. Like I want to see it again. But I mean, that was kind of the same thing. So we went to the bullfights and so we started out, we're like, oh, we're at a bullfight. This is really cool. We're like taking photos. And then the first bull dies and I kind of like tuck my camera away. I'm like, oh, this is kind of a little bit like gory, a little bit morbid. And it's so much of a cultural thing. Like how many bulls is there in the bullfight? 6 of them? And after the third one, everybody pulled out their baguette sandwiches wrapped in tinfoil. And they're eating their baguette sandwiches as this like third bull is getting killed. And then it just continues from there. Like they pull out dessert and everybody has these coolers and everybody's sharing dessert. Like people didn't understand why we weren't eating and why we didn't want their lemon cake. And then they drink their coffee and then they all start smoking. And it's just everybody's doing it. It's just very much like a cultural thing.
Or like a ritual kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, and I guess maybe if they went to a hockey game, they'd be like, oh, I don't understand what's going on here. But
the situation's a little bit different.
No, totally. I mean, it's something completely, I've never experienced anything like it. Like I remember like seeing somebody pull out a sandwich and I was like, oh, weird. Like I don't really have the urge to eat right now. Like this is a bit morbid. And it's like everybody was doing it. It's like, where was our memo that we were supposed to bring a baguette wrapped in tinfoil for like the third bull being killed?
Yeah. So that's one thing I want to talk about was how much more, this is a fairly well-known event worldwide, and there are a decent amount of foreigners there, but how it is very pure Spanish event. Like you really feel like an outsider when you're there because there's not many people speaking English. You obviously encounter them, but there's not a ton. Businesses in general aren't giving out things in English.
Yeah,
there aren't
really
signs in English anywhere.
It's catered for foreigners. Like it's very much like a Spanish event, which is something that I think we were very naive about, very unaware. We had a very hard time finding. I remember searching for food the first day and it was like, we couldn't find any menus in English. We finally found one. It's like done. We'll eat here.
Yeah, we ate a lot of kebab.
Yeah, we ate a lot of kebab because we're like, okay, we know what is happening here. But I remember.
But at the bullfight, so going in, I was kind of interested from a stance of like, oh, this is going to be a new experience for me. I'm not a big animal rights person. Obviously, I think torturing animals is sadistic and disgusting. But there's a lot of people who get upset at an event like Stampede for animals getting hurt. They don't think it should exist.
Yeah, people get very upset at events like that in North America. And I mean, it's a whole different level in Spain.
Yeah. It's weird, because they're just killing the bulls. And obviously the bulls do live a good life. You can make all these rationalizations, but it does seem kind of pointless in the end. Like, there's a lot of ritual to it. The whole event has a set ritual that's been followed for hundreds and hundreds of years. And I think when you have ritualized events, like, there's a lot of stupidity there because no one ever thought about why this happens. Everyone's just always done it because they've always done it. Until at one point someone's like, oh, it'd be sweet if I killed the bull. And then some people watch, and then they're like, oh, yeah, we do this because we did it last week, and then we do this because we did it a year ago, and then it just goes on forever.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, it was, I don't know, you get this feeling, or I got this feeling, it was like, ugh, are we just sitting here watching people kill bulls? And it wasn't, so I think,
yeah, I
didn't really know exactly what happened, and I think that kind of contributed to that feeling, because the way a bullfight works in the Spanish style is you have some people come out and kind of taunt the bull in matador style outfits with what you picture the cape thing, like the matador with a bull and the sword. That's all I had ever really seen.
Mm-hmm.
So then the first of the 3/3 is that there's picadors who are on horses. The horses wear padding now, but they didn't before the 1930s.
And you looked up why that was, right?
Yeah, so I guess before the 1930s, without padding on, the horses commonly got disemboweled by bulls, and a lot more horses would die during a bullfight than bulls, which makes them wearing padding seem to make a little bit more sense, but it kind of seems like a strange half measure. So the picadors stab the bull in the neck mound,
mm-hmm.
and what that does is it weakens the bull because it starts to bleed, and it makes him lower its head, which allows the matador to perform his
like killing.
Yeah,
like
so they
get into the heart.
And then the next step is their bomberos, I think is the name.
Mm-hmm.
There's 3 guys, and they each plant 2 pick things into the similar area of the bull, and they don't have any capes, so they're just standing there, them versus the bull with these pick things. It's actually pretty cool to watch because they're pretty agile and quick.
It's banderillas.
Banderillas are the things. Banderillos are the people.
Mm-hmm.
And then the matador comes out. The bull is already weakened, and you can see watching it, like, there's just not much. There's still, obviously, it's a bull. Like, I would not get in the bull ring with that weakened bull.
But by this point, they're like, most of them are like bleeding from the mouth. You can see it.
Yeah, you can see
they're stumbling. Like, you can tell that they're dying.
So they
got a lot of fight in them, though.
Yeah, the matador does. This is the part you typically see. The bull the matador makes the bull dance, weakens it a bit more, and then the climax of the event, I guess, is the matador performs what's called the death thrust, where they put the sword between the shoulder blades into the heart, killing the bull. So when it's done well, it seems weird to say done well, but a couple of the people we saw, they put it in, they pull it out, the bull starts bleeding from the mouth, and it, kind of collapses almost instantly. But a couple of the people we watched didn't do it well at all. And at that point, it gets kind of, even before it's weird, but when you're watching them not succeed at doing it, it's
pretty morbid. I don't know.
So the crowd gets, one of the matadors had done it, I think, twice and failed, and people started throwing garbage and doing that really loud whistling thing they do.
It's like they don't want the bull to suffer. But they want the bull to die, because when the bull dies, the crowd goes absolutely mental. Like,
it's not when the bull dies. It's when the matador does it well.
Yeah.
So when the matador, the bull comes by, boom, swords in, swords out, bull's bleeding, bull's on the ground. Because it's something they've grown up with, they're not really seeing it from like an outside, oh, what's happening here standpoint. They're seeing it as, oh, okay, this is a matador who's doing it very well.
Yeah. That's true. But we have some videos of the crowd. Like, we weren't in the rowdy section. We were kind of with like a lot of older people, which was nice. But if you get in the rowdier sections, like there's people who have all sorts of instruments. They have flags. They're throwing sangria when the bulls die or when the matador kills them well.
Yeah, the crowd is insane. They're chanting. It's like being at a soccer game in Europe, but it's bullfight.
Yeah, I think after watching the first bull die, I was pretty much just watching the crowd.
Yeah, it went on for a strangely long amount of time.
Yeah, did we end up leaving earlier or did we stay for the whole thing? I feel like we stayed for the whole thing.
Yeah.
Although I think I had the urge to leave early because it was like, at some point it's like, okay, I've seen enough bulls die.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a strange event. I don't think I'd go to a bullfight again then. I wouldn't go to a bullfight again. I just think it's kind of senseless. It doesn't seem, there's no benefit. I don't really take enjoyment out of, watching the bulls get killed.
Yeah, I agree with you. In saying that though, are you happy that we went and had that cultural experience while in Spain? Because it is a big part of Spanish culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with it existing. So,
but are you happy that we went?
Yeah, I'm glad we went and saw it. I'm not going to be. There's a lot of people who take a standpoint on like people shouldn't be allowed to do that. I think that if someone obviously owns that bull, and if they want to put on a show where that bull gets killed, I think that's doable because animals are a property. People can own animals, and people can do with their property.
Yeah, I think my thing is too, one thing that I'm big on when I travel is I try not to place a judgment on other people's cultures.
Mm-hmm.
Like just because that's not how I was brought up, just because that's not what I know, or just because like I didn't enjoy it doesn't mean that I think that it should not be something that happens. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I think that's a very like scary viewpoint to take. Like, okay, genocide was a cultural thing for Nazi Germany.
True, yeah.
I think you should be able to damn societies and their cultural activities.
No, you're completely right. And there are things that I don't agree with. Like things that happen in the Muslim culture with suicide bombing. I don't think that that's right at all.
Or any of the way they treat females in that culture.
Yeah, for sure. I don't agree with that either. So I should probably reframe that sentence. I'm not so opposed to the bullfighting that I don't disagree with that as a cultural thing. It's not something that I'm going to take part in again in my life though.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it was something that I think was like valuable to go and see for me as embracing the Spanish culture. Yeah. And I agree with you. The animals are the property and people can do what they want with them. Does that make sense? Is that better?
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, no, I think that bullfighting, it very much exists because it's always existed. It hasn't always existed, but that's kind of the context in which it exists. If everyone all of a sudden had their like memories wiped, but like obviously still maintained basic functioning, and then we're like, all these Spanish people go to a bullfight, and I'm like, what's the point of all of this? Like, why this is weird? Like, it's bizarre.
Yeah, it's interesting how people don't question those cultural things. Like, why, as a nation, are we doing this?
Well,
why are we doing this? Like, do I actually enjoy watching this? I wonder if any of the young people who have been brought up with bullfighting as a part of their culture are thinking, like, why do we do this? Why do I go see this? Do I like this?
That viewpoint that you said before about I'm not going to, like, it's a cultural thing. It's a cultural thing. Like, we use those words to kind of just
rationalize or justify.
And just to avoid taking responsibility for making a judgment.
Yeah.
Like, what is a cultural thing? Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
It means, it's something that happens. It's a cultural thing. So what do you mean when you're saying that? You mean it's a thing that exists for no other reason other than it's existed before and no one really thinks about it too much, or else it wouldn't exist probably.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
Like, why do Canadian people love hockey so much? Because it's pumped down our face, throat, eye area so much. Like, you turn on the TV, hockey.
And
like, there's nothing genetically about Canadians that makes us prone to watch hockey.
Yeah, no, it's also like, I don't know, it makes you feel good. It's like, oh, we're good at hockey. Like, I love hockey. I'm Canadian. I love hockey. We're so good at hockey. Right? Like, it's like a cultural pump up.
Yeah, well, you use those cultural things to form part of your identity, as we talked about another day. But
yeah, and it makes you, just brings you up, makes you feel better about yourself, I guess.
Yeah, but there are other, other styles of bullfighting, like the Madrid style of bullfighting, is there's a pole in the center of the ring and the bulls don't get killed, but it's more of like a dance where the guy is just like avoid the bulls.
Do you think you'd go and see that if you went to Madrid? Because we didn't go to Madrid once.
I don't know if it still exists that much.
Okay.
That might have been Valencia style. I don't know. There's some other style of bullfighting like that. There's a whole bunch of them. But yeah, so we went to the bullfight and it was an experience.
Yeah, an experience, I think is fair to say.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that I kind of wanted to address is that I was fairly culture shocked getting to Spain. And so one of the nights when we were out and we were drinking, I actually had a bit of a breakdown coming home. And by breakdown, I mean I was crying and I was just so overwhelmed. This is the first time that I'd really felt like a lot of culture shock. Yeah,
it's funny how I think we were both unassertive, not self-assertive people at all. And when you get into a situation where you're really not speaking any of the language, almost anything has to be an assertive action because you don't know how to be unassertive and ask for things. What I mean by that is like, oh, do you think that maybe you could possibly do this? When you don't speak Spanish, all you can say is like, pizza.
Pollo.
Yeah.
I think too, it was hard for me. So I'm unassertive. I want Ryan to be assertive for me. He's not very assertive, so he's not asserting himself.
And I want you to be
He wants me to be assertive, so it's causing a lot of frustration. And then for me too, it's difficult with eating because I have a sensitive stomach. So instead of learning to say, I can't eat wheat, no puedo comer harina de trigo.
Yeah.
Very simple. I'm just like being frustrated and grumpy and I'm mad that there's no English and I'm frustrated that I don't know what to say, but at the same time, I'm not like going forward to look at it or to look it up, to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, and I'm frustrated that people aren't accommodating me when really it's my responsibility to accommodate myself, if that makes sense. Like I was frustrated that the guy at the train station, it's like, hablas inglés? No. Well, why not? Why don't you speak English? Why don't you speak Spanish? Why have you not learned how to, like, as in me, why have I not learned how to say, can we reserve a train for Sunday to Barcelona? Like it's very
fairly simple.
Very, very basic Spanish. Yet it's like I'm feeling frustrated and so I had a breakdown, just like crying, like I miss home, like I'm frustrated.
Yeah, and it was hard too because it's quite a large party. Everyone's having fun, but you kind of feel like it's a sea of people and you kind of feel isolated because for us, we were staying in an apartment. So there's no opportunity to meet anyone. So then you have to try to meet people on the street, which is like, it's kind of a weird thing to do intentionally. It's like, how do you, for example, we ended up hanging out with a group of Australians one night because we were just sitting by them in the park and started talking to them. But we were just like a forced, like, oh, I'm going to try to start talking to people. And the other night with the Spanish girl,
we like met a group of Spanish people and the one girl lived in New Zealand for a few years and spoke fluent English. So she was kind of like the translator between us and the rest of the group.
Yeah, but none of the other groups spoke any Spanish and we didn't speak any English. It was kind of an awkward situation, but it was interesting.
Yeah, fun. It was fun. It's nice to kind of have. They were from Basque Country up north in Spain, so they were pretty like local, I guess you could say. So we got kind of like a locals experience, which was fun. But still, it was
a locals experience being just drinking in the street, hanging out, talking.
Yeah, pretty much. It was awkward, but it was good. But I was feeling definitely overwhelmed there. It was like the first place I'd been where I really felt out of my comfort zone. Like people are not, like I'm not getting what I need and I'm struggling to meet those needs and it's frustrating.
Yeah.
At the same time, I wasn't helping myself.
Yeah. I always find for me, when I get outwardly frustrated at things that I know I shouldn't be getting frustrated at, it's just at the root of it is me feeling bad about something I've done myself. Like when, I should have done more prep for this. Oh, I'm so mad about X happening, but it's like, oh, I'm only mad about X happening because I should have prepared for X.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And for me, it's like I want to come across as like I'm not bothered by this, like I can do this. So then it doesn't really come out until I've started drinking It's like I'm drinking and then it's like I break down. Like I'm just having this meltdown because I haven't dealt with these emotions that I'm feeling and I haven't really like put my finger on what it is exactly that's bothering me. And what it was is that I was just frustrated with myself that I hadn't learned any Spanish.
Yeah, and that's something I would say, it's a little bit cliche to say learn the language while you go places, but from traveling for an extended period of time and not really putting any special effort into learning languages beyond hello, thank you, whatever, to spending time in South America actually learning the language, it's a really rewarding experience. Just learning a language is a lot of fun, and it helps so much in feeling comfortable and not feeling overwhelmed.
100% with that. And you also get a lot of value. Like if you can walk up to a vendor, have a conversation with a waiter, I mean, you just get so much out of your experience. Like the people are interested in you too. Mm-hmm. They are. And you can just very much like have a good experience in a country if you can have some communication with the people.
Yeah, and nowadays there's so many good tools out there for learning languages, like Duolingo.
Rosetta Stone.
Yeah, but Rosetta Stone's out of date now that Duolingo's free, but you can put in some work on Duolingo and get like a baseline as long as you do it. If you do something every day for 2 weeks, you're going to get some sort of feeling for it. But what I'd say, if you're going to, rural Spain, rural Italy, even like rural Germany, if you're going in Europe, you will need to learn some languages.
Yeah. Just learn like the basics. Hello, how are you? Mm-hmm. Thank you. Can I go here? Could I please have? Yeah, that sort of thing. And if you have anything you can't eat, learn how to say those things. Learn how to ask for them because people are very friendly. It's just, I think a lot of people get frustrated when you're an English speaker and you're just assuming that they should speak English.
Yeah, when you get up to them and start speaking English right away, it's pretty rude.
Yeah,
I would say. So then we partied one last night and caught a train out of Pamplona in the morning, which was an experience in itself.
Yeah, so we were in a train car I refer to them as Spanish losers in my journal, and I'm going to stick with that. They're a bunch of young Spanish guys. I think they were local to Basque Country or around
somewhere around Pamplona because they weren't on the train for an especially long period of time.
Yeah, and so there was some Japanese people on the train, and they kept saying like konnichiwa.
Well, we don't even know if they were Japanese. They were just Asian people.
Okay, yeah. Asian people that they were saying konnichiwa to and laughing and saying stuff in Spanish. One guy snorted cocaine off the side window.
There was smoking. And in Spain, the train system is fairly new. So these are like nice trains and they're smoking and doing cocaine and harassing tourists. I feel like at some point I felt like they were talking about us because they were like looking at us and like yelling things at us in Spanish. But in our direction.
Yeah, it was a fairly dreadful couple of hours with them on the train. I was so happy when they got off.
Yeah, and it's something we encountered a few times, a lot of packs of Spanish males who, I don't know if it's just like because there's not much going on, not much promise there for young males. I think unemployment's super high. But yeah, packs of Spanish males doing nothing but like, they go out, get drunk. They're yelling loud, like, look at me, asshole types. Yeah. I don't want to generalize a giant population, but we did encounter packs of males together just being like generally terrible human beings.
Yeah. So needless to say, we were happy when they got off the train. And after connecting 3 times, we were pretty stoked to get to Barcelona.
Yeah, it was a good experience in Pamplona, something that I look back on fondly and would go to again. But we were both happy to be out of there.
Yeah, I was pretty tired.
Normal sleep patterns in the real world.
Not eating kebab at like 6 a.m.
Yeah, not eating kebab at 10 p.m., 2 p.m., 6 a.m. No, 10 p.m., 2 a.m., 6 a.m. But so then we went to Barcelona and we continued on around Spain. And next time on the podcast, we'll talk about Barcelona.
So check out our show notes at www.theworldwanderers.com. We'll have some links up on there, some videos of the chaoticness that is the running of the bulls, and some photos from our time there.
Hasta luego.
Ciao.